And now, Mr. Willy's Pod of Mayhem on the Breaking Fate Radio Network.
Estamos estampillas. For you, in fact, coming up next up. Come on.
Welcome to the Pod of Mayhem. I'm Willy Atkins. Thanks for listening to episode 7, featuring actress Anita Nicole Brown. This episode is a little bit longer than usual, as Anita truly has an amazing story to tell. And I could have probably cut it down a little bit, but I figured in light of the current coronavirus scare in our country, keeping so many people at home, I decided to allow this episode to be just a little bit longer than usual. Figured people have a little bit more time on their hands at the moment. Beyond that, speaking of the coronavirus, I do wish you all the best during these trying times, not for just our country, but the entire world right now. It's pretty scary. So many people are feeling the effects of this situation beyond those with the virus alone, myself included. So please be good to your neighbors and to yourselves. Before we get started here, I wanted to announce that I will be rebranding the Pod of Mayhem sometime in the next few weeks. The new name will be Creative Backstory. Is a little more fitting for the content of this show, I think. I do, however, plan to bring back the Pod of Mayhem as a whole new show with a completely different format sometime in the near future. So stay tuned for more details on that. For now, if you could like the new Facebook page, facebook.com/Creative Backstory, that would simply rock and help us out a lot. I think it'll be probably 2 or 3 weeks before we get started there, and it'll probably be some replays of the shows we've done already as we get the formats all set up there and all the branding switched over. Anyway, I'm not going to ramble too much. We have a lot to talk about with Anita. I'll be right back. Are you enjoying the Pod of Mayhem and you want to start a podcast yourself? Well, if you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. First and foremost, it's free. I mean, you can't be free, right? In addition to that, there's also creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or your computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more platforms. You can even make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast, all in one place. So, if you'd like to check it out, download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. All right, welcome to the Pod of Mayhem. I have my dear friend Anita Nicole Brown in here, 78-time actress now. Wow, 78 credits.
Just added a couple.
Thanks for coming in, making the travel out here to the Corn to be with me today. For those listening, we've been sitting here conversing for probably a half hour already just because we could do that and make like a 4 or 5 hour podcast.
It would be entertaining.
But I'm sorry you don't get the secret dark version. Anyway, thanks for coming out, Anita. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
So for the listeners that aren't familiar with you, can you tell us exactly where you're from?
Chicago. Right here. I'm sorry, we're in DeKalb. My bad. I am from Sweet Home, Chicago. Born and raised primarily on the north side of the city. So, yeah.
Cool. Both parents from Chicago?
Yes. If I recall, my mom grew up the west side. And I believe my dad actually grew up around Cabrini Green.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, that's definitely both very much Chicago.
Very much Chicago.
Very, very Chicago. So, it's my understanding you were a twin also. Is that right?
Yeah. I had a twin brother. His name was Nicholas. We lost him July 1st, 2012. But that was my twin. He was actually supposed to be the actor and all of that stuff. So
really?
Yes.
Kind of some role reversals
exactly.
going on.
That was him. And I was the studious, dorky, bookworm, all of that. So, yeah.
If you don't mind me asking, what was it that caused him to pass?
Complications. He was HIV positive, and there was a complication with his medication and stuff like that. So,
oh, it's rough. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's at least what we were told. So,
at what age?
What was this? 2012. So, how old were we? Because our birthday is in June, so it was literally not even a month after our 34th or something.
Oh, that's just far too young.
Yeah, very.
Wow. Unbelievable.
Very disappointing and surprising. I did not want to believe it when I was told. I told people they were lying.
Yeah. I'm sure all this time later, that's still hard to fathom.
It is, because as I started getting further along in acting and things like that, he started getting more and more serious about it. So he was saying, my nickname is Nene from my family. So he's like, Nene, when you make your break, and he was like, you know I'm gonna be right there. I was like, duh, of course. So it's like, when I get my big break, my twin was gonna be right there, and then that was gonna be his intro into the world and stuff like that. So like, we had this all planned of what we were gonna do. So yeah.
I wish he was around. I really do. For many reasons, I would have loved to have known him, especially, being a talent as yourself.
Yeah, he and mine is like, well, like I can do dramatic and everything very well. He was probably a little bit more on the comedic.
Yeah.
So so that was where we were different.
A little bit different timing.
Yep.
Sure. So what was life like growing up in the city?
Oh, I loved it.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I loved growing up in the city. Like, I love, taking the bus and everything to get places, walking everywhere, all of that. Like, for me, that was just awesome. Like, I love the city life. I am so not a country girl. No way, shape, or form. I am hardcore city. Like, I need the sound of trains and buses at night to put me to sleep and everything. Like, that is me. If it's too quiet, I'm probably going to stay up all night.
Well, you might get the sound of trains out here, but not too many buses, some here and there.
But that's comforting for me. That's relaxing.
So, were your initial intentions as a child to be an actress? I mean, is that where you always saw yourself being? Or if not, where did you see yourself as a child? What were you make-believing about?
Initially, I wanted to be a fashion designer.
Fashion, nice.
Yes. So growing up, I used to make the clothes for my Barbie dolls, my sister's dolls, and stuff like that. And eventually I got my sewing machine and all of that. So I think my dad stopped buying clothes for our dolls. And he was just like, he'd tell my little sister, oh, go tell your sister to make it for you. Like, all of a sudden, buying clothes and stuff for our dolls and everything ended. Like, it was my responsibility to do that. So that was what I wanted to do. My mom, she was a model, so I don't know if somehow that's still connected, because I wanted to go into fashion design.
Yeah.
So, and my mom had some nice clothes. Oh my God. So, so that was, I went to Columbia College. My undergrad was in fashion design and everything. Like, that was what I was going to do. Like, that was it. There's nothing else to talk about. And then a detour happened, and I ended up here. So
there's a lot of those bumps in the road.
Oh yeah.
So you had a younger sister too?
Yes, I have my little sister, my itty bitty baby. Her name is Lorraine.
I don't think I've ever met her.
Nope, not yet.
Where is she? Still in Chicago?
She is. Where is she? Like, right before you're in Indiana. Like, that's how far out she is. But yes, that is my itty bitty. I love my little sister.
Yeah, I'll have to meet her one of these days.
Oh yeah, you can tell.
So when did this bump in the road happen that caused you to switch to film?
I think it happened because you don't really see fashion designers that just start out. They don't really make it big without something else added. So as I was trying to figure out how I was going to get into it, I realized with indie film, they may not have designers. they may not have wardrobe and stylists and stuff like that. So I was like, okay, well, if I go here, then I can start building, you know what I mean? Like start off as a stylist and then start actually making clothes and things like that. And then by default, I can build my brand and my name in the independent film
And at this time, your brother was pursuing this type of field himself, right?
He was kind of in music though.
Oh, really?
So he was making music and things like that. And I remember him and my older brother, I'd like put clothing together. A lot of my male friends, they'd go shopping with me and I'd style them and dress them and things like that. So I started technically in fashion. I really did. I tried really hard.
So there's an older brother too.
Yes.
Wow, this family's getting bigger and bigger by the minute here. Tell me about your older brother. I didn't even know this.
My older brother, he is music. He's a aspiring rapper. He's still trying. I remember one break he did, was it GCI, where one of his songs did play on the radio.
What's his name?
William, or Bill. We call him Bill. His stage name is Willy Funk. So, yes.
I like his name.
I know. He loves it too. But yeah, so Bill, his nickname, I call him Billy-O, so that's his name from me, and he
Billy-O.
knows it. Yep, he's my Billy-O. Everybody in my family had a nickname. So my twin brother, our nicknames for each other were Booby. So obviously because it's twins. So
Two boobies.
Yep. So he was Booby, I was Booby, and my little sister was Bitty Baby, and then my older brother was Billy-O. So everybody in my family had a nickname.
It's kind of funny. These days I call you Booty.
Close. It's still close, just very close.
So what was your first film then? I mean, what first got you involved? I mean, you decided you wanted to do this. Did you start trying to hit up auditions? Did you have an in maybe through your brother, or how did this initially get started?
Initially, it wasn't film. I actually started in pageants.
Okay.
So
that brings in a lot of the fashion.
So that was how I started. I started in the pageant world, doing pageants and things like that. I was going back and forth to LA for pageants and all of that stuff. So that was initially where I started.
I'm sure your mom loved that.
She did initially. My idea of fashion is completely different, or was completely different from my mom's. So I'm sure I don't have a problem with nudity or none of that stuff. My mom, on the other hand, was like, "Why you got to be naked for this?" And so, so that was the difference between us. So,
I'm modeling a necklace today. Just a necklace.
There you go. Hey, I'm gonna make the necklace pop. Trust me.
Yes, you will.
But yeah, so I started in pageants, and then I started getting hiccups in the pageants, obviously because I had no issue with nudity and things like that, and the pageant world can be
cruel on people who are open to that.
Mm-hmm, exactly. And so started getting hiccups with that, and then I started getting hiccups when it came to like my insulin pumps and my syringes and things like that. Me wanting to talk about it, the scars that I had from the years of injections and stuff, and I didn't want them camouflaged or edited out. So yeah.
So we haven't made mention yet, but obviously we'll get into a lot of this. But
Right.
You are type 1 diabetic for those
Yes, I
listening. That's what the insulin is all about. And we will definitely get into that because I know that's a huge part of your life.
Definitely.
So when did these pageants translate to the screen?
They translated into the screen because my coach, Molly Benson, she reached out to me at one point, and she inquired if I was ever interested in acting. And at the time, I somehow slid into background work because it was a little bit of a steady income.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And she said, I don't know exactly how she found me, but she says, I think you could possibly do acting. And I'm like, huh? Okay, I don't know what you're talking about. But I started working with her. And she taught me so much. That woman taught me everything.
This is Molly Benson, the coach out of Chicago.
LA.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
and she just taught me a lot, and she made me realize that I really could do this, you know, and I could incorporate everything that I wanted to do, from the modeling, from the fashion, to bringing awareness to diabetes and things like that. Like, I could do all of this just by entering the field of acting.
That's what I love about film, and I've said this to many people. You know, they've asked me, do you like photography more than you like film? Because obviously I've done that for a lot longer than film. But I love film because it brings together all these different arts into one collaborative project. I mean, you got people who are dealing with sound, you got people dealing with music, people dealing with still photography.
Yep.
Then you obviously got the video itself, videography, cinematography. It's like makeup artist. It's like everything brought into one.
Everything in
everything.
one.
That fashion design.
Yes. And so that was pretty much when I said, I'm going to do this. I was like, I could do this. And then that was when everything changed. So
You caught the bug. I'm so sorry you're here with us.
Oh, I'm not. I love it.
Boy, it's a struggle. We'll get into some struggles too, though. We will definitely get into some of that. So what was the first film project?
I want to say, like, is it like speaking lines or?
Well, I know you did background work, obviously,
Right.
before you got started, but
I did quite a bit of that.
yeah, I'm going to flip through your IMDb just to see what the first one that shows up. Looks like it was a TV short called Reward Hunt, maybe?
Yes.
Was that the very first one?
I'm going to say yes and no, because that was more featured. So, you know, not necessarily leading and supporting roles, but it was more of a featured, you know, a featured character and stuff like that. So, yeah, that's why I was like, it's kind of a mumble. Like, it wasn't a principal role. It wasn't a supporting role. So it's like, so where exactly?
If it's a role at all is what I would get into.
Okay.
I mean, what, you know, your first time saying, okay, I'm going to be an actress, and you're on set to be an actress, or how you even got to that set. I mean,
for me, I would say it would probably be, what is it? The Happily
After?
Yes, I would say it was that one, because that one was a featured role, but there were no lines. But it was the first time I actually went in and auditioned.
Yeah.
So
And what was that process like for you? Terrified? No? Quite comfortable in that?
Yeah.
I guess a lot of the pageant world would have you prepared for that too,
exactly. And I think that's why it was so easy for me, because trust me, pageants and modeling, you come in, no, not interested, go.
Yeah.
Like, so you build up an immunity to.
You definitely got to have some thick skin for it, for sure. I've done it too, I know.
Yes.
It doesn't matter it doesn't matter what sex you are, what
it sure
anything.
doesn't.
It certainly can be pretty cutthroat and
yes,
blunt.
it is.
Well, we're going to take a quick break. We're going to get into a lot of the project you've worked on, as well as life as a type 1, because I know that is your mission. It's going to be a good talk. We'll be right back.
Bolt your doors, lock your windows, turn off your lights, and come with me into the Weird Darkness. I'm Darren Marlar, host of Weird Darkness, where I share stories of the paranormal, supernatural, legends, lore, mysterious, macabre, unsolved, and unexplained. Recently named one of the best storytellers in podcasting for 2019 by Podcast Business Journal. Whether it's ghosts, cryptids, true crime, or creepypastas, you'll find it all in Weird Darkness. Episodes uploaded 7 days a week. Search for Weird Darkness in your favorite podcast app, or listen now at WeirdDarkness.com.
All right, welcome back to the Pod of Mayhem. I'm Willy Atkins, here with my lovely guest today, Anita Nicole Brown. We go back quite a ways. I can't even tell you when I originally met you, to be honest with you.
I know, I don't remember.
It just kind of happened, and it was meant to be, for sure. Had the joy of working with you repeatedly and getting to know a lot of what you do. And I got to work with you in a photo studio, which was also equally fun and enjoyable.
You are a crazy photographer, but A good type of crazy.
The type that walks in and says, "Are you okay with nudity?" And then I show up nude. Yeah. I want to talk about you being a type 1 diabetic.
Yes.
Because I know that this is a huge thing for you, and it's a mission of yours to kind of bring more awareness to the situation and show, through both photography and modeling work and film, that you definitely have your place. Can you tell us a little bit about the history with that, when you first found out about that and what you had to go through?
So, wow. So that was my senior year of high school. I remember the date like it was yesterday, mainly because it was my dad's birthday. I know. I give such amazing birthday gifts, don't I?
Oh, man.
I was diagnosed November 12th, 1998. So what is that? Almost 22 years ago. So, yes. It was, I was in private school, Catholic school, and we always do checkups and stuff like that. So I had been a very active girl all summer and stuff like that, but I had lost a lot of weight. And so my mom was just like, well, when school starts, she's going to slow down. So she'll pick the weight back up, whatever. She wasn't too worried, but
brushed it off as being overly active.
Exactly.
All the time.
And then all of a sudden, November, I still hadn't picked the weight up. Like, school started in September, still didn't pick it up by November. So my mom was like, okay, no, we got to go and figure out what's wrong. And so we go to the doctor, and the doctor starts asking all these questions, like random, and we're blah, 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 blah. And then they became more specific. And you could tell they were no longer random questions. They were very specific.
They were onto something.
Exactly. And my mom literally looked at the doctor. She goes, okay, look, stop. What the hell does she have? And the doctor goes, well, she might have diabetes. And at the time, the only diabetes we really knew about and heard about was being obese and things like that. And I'm like this, like pencil thin. And my mom's like, how? Look at her. How can she have diabetes? She's super active. She's this and this and this. Like, my mom's just snapping at the doctor. And that was when the doctor was like, well, there are actually different kinds of diabetes. She may have what is known as juvenile or type 1 diabetes.
Okay, you want to, for the listeners out there, because obviously you and your mom, everybody was ignorant to that at the time.
Yes.
Let's give an explanation for listeners so they kind of know what the difference is there, because a lot of people hear type 2 and they never quite hear type 1.
Right. So, and honestly, even type 2 has its differences. So type 2 diabetes, the first kind can be connected to diet and exercise and eating. So that one can be connected to that. And with that form of type 2 diabetes, you lose weight, you start eating right, exercising, doing right by your body. Your type 2 can go away. Now, there's another form of type 2 diabetes. That's called insulin resistance. So your body does produce insulin. The problem is your body doesn't know how to use it properly. So with that form of diabetes, it's very hard because no matter how much weight you lose and things like that, your body can't utilize that insulin properly. So more than likely, you'll be on oral medication, or in some instances, you'll be also on insulin injections to help you better control your type 2 diabetes. Now, type 1, also known as juvenile diabetes, is an autoimmune disease. So nothing we can do can stop us from getting this disease, period. There is nothing, no amount of eating right, exercising, doing it. Yeah, I'm going to be stuck with this disease until the day I die. And what that means is my body destroyed my ability to produce insulin. So I will never make insulin again. And by default, I'm going to constantly be stuck on an outside source of insulin in order to live a regular life.
And they don't know why that is.
They have no idea. It's still lumped in the category of all the other autoimmune diseases that they still haven't cured yet. So it's another one, another coin in the bucket. There we go. We'll figure out that later in life. So yeah, that's pretty much all it is. And for people that don't know, what insulin does is your body produces insulin. So any food you eat, things like that, your body, once the food enters your system, it turns into glucose. Your body produces insulin to take that glucose and convert that glucose into the energy you need to make it through the day. So this is how important insulin is for us. So when you don't make insulin, obviously you're not going to have the energy. You're not going to be able to do things, things like that. So insulin is still very important for the body. And as a type 1 diabetic, I have to have insulin. And for those of you that always keep asking me if I can eat stuff, yes, I can eat whatever the hell I want to eat. Stop asking me that question.
Well, let's jump back to when you first found out then, hearing this little bit of information. You were losing weight at the time.
I was losing so much weight.
But you were still very active. So
yep.
Can you explain why that would have been? I mean, obviously you just mentioned that it takes away, what's producing your energy. I mean, what keeps you functioning and moving?
So that's what happened. That's what caused the weight loss. So my body is sitting up here trying to figure out, how do I get this energy? Because it's not converting the food from insulin.
So it's feeding on itself?
It's feeding on the fat.
Okay.
So all the fat that I initially had, my body was taking that fat and trying to turn it into the energy that I would need. So that's what added to the rapid weight loss, because it's just burning all the fat off of my body. So it has something to utilize as energy. And that's where the weight loss came from. That's why I was still so active and things like that. But even then, I was still always so tired. Yeah. And I was always hungry because it's not converting the food I'm eating.
So your body's saying you need more, you need more, you need more.
And I'm always
and none of it's
eating.
helping.
Nope. So it was, yeah. And my mom, that was another surprise she had, because she's like, she's always hungry. She's always eating. How is she always eating, but she's never gaining weight? Like that was just baffling my mom. And once we understood how type 1 works, everything just started making so much sense. Like we started understanding everything, why I'd eat, why I'd always be so tired, why, like everything that I was going through, it all made sense as soon as we understood what it was.
So what progressed from there then? I mean, you found out, and then you're dealing with insulin at that time.
Yep, I was put on insulin, and it was just initially I was on 2 different insulins. What was it? It was MPH, which is known as a long-lasting insulin, and then was it regular? Humulin R or I can't remember, but basically, the long-lasting insulin is what I would take once a day, and that it has peaks throughout a 24-hour period. So it'll peak every couple of hours, and so that'll, like if I have a snack, it's supposed to help with the snack. My regular insulin, was what I would use every time I ate. So if I ate a regular meal, I'd have to give myself a little bit more insulin, and that insulin is more of the fasting acting insulin. So that insulin will convert that food right away, whereas the long-lasting insulin would go with the peaks throughout the course of the day.
I see.
So I was on 2 different insulins, and I had to take them multiple times a day, multiple injections. Yay, awesome. And I think shortly after that, when my body started working normal again, then I got hit with diabetic nerve damage.
Which is a whole nother monster.
Yes, it is.
You want to explain to people exactly what that means?
So basically, from what I was told by the neurologist and everything, they said when my body wasn't functioning properly because I didn't have the insulin and things like that, a lot of the problems, I guess you can call them, I couldn't feel them. I didn't experience them because my body wasn't functioning. Once the insulin started putting my body back to normal, that's when I started feeling this pain in my legs and feet. And so what the neurologist said was I had nerve damage, and it was through diabetic complications.
So this would have been prior to you actually starting your insulin and knowing that the damage actually occurred, and you're getting the effects of it later.
I should have gotten it a while ago, but because my body wasn't functioning, it didn't register.
I see.
Until my body started acting right. So I was like, well, why did I need my body to act right then? Man, take this shit away. Like, I don't want to feel this pain. Like, no, take it. But couldn't do that.
The damage was already there. You just didn't know it.
Right, exactly. So basically what happened is I should have been diagnosed type 1 in 8th grade. That was when all the signs set in. I didn't get diagnosed until my senior year of high school. So basically my diabetes went that long untreated and undiagnosed. So,
Scary.
yeah. So that's where all the complications that ended up happening kicked in. And had it continued, I probably would not be here. So technically, it was a good thing I got diagnosed when I did.
Yeah.
So that was a blessing. So yay. But yeah, the nerve damage, it took a lot. It took a lot. It was such a small amount of nerve damage, but you know how sometimes the smallest things can inflict the worst amount of pain ever.
What kind of complications do you have from that nerve damage?
Luckily, none.
None now, right?
None now.
But
My doctors
at the time,
don't even,
it's like a pain through your legs is what
It was-
you would describe it as?
It felt like someone had a syringe and was taking a syringe and running it up and down my legs multiple times all
Ouch.
day, every day. And then at the same time, it felt like electricity was shooting through my legs. And then at the same time, it felt like a fire.
Okay.
So that was what I was going through in my senior year of high school, trying to be normal.
And how long did that last?
It was about a year. It was about a year, and it was hard. It was about a year of, probably a little bit longer than a year, because it was into my second semester at Columbia College.
Yeah.
So senior year, and then my first semester, and then my second semester was when it kind of stopped. And the doctors still don't know what caused it to stop, because most people, when you get diagnosed with nerve damage, they say it is quite possible you could have this for the rest of your life.
Well, at least it did stop. And
Yes.
as soon as it did, that's a lot to deal with for lifelong.
Yes, it is. And it is painful. And no, oh my God, medication and everything. Trust me. It was a lot.
So before you got started acting, we had this situation, right? You were doing pageants and stuff like that at the time.
No, actually, I still hadn't gotten into
This
pageants.
was before pageants.
This was
even.
all before.
What was it like getting started in pageants? Dealing with this situation.
Initially,
and what kind of resistance did you see from that as well? I got to wonder, because they're really,
they are picky.
yeah, very picky.
And initially, I didn't think it would be an issue. Like this is a life. For me, as of because I didn't get into pageants until after I graduated college. So I graduated college in 2004.
Okay.
And then I kind of got into work and had a regular job and all of that. But
What were you doing back then?
I was actually in real estate.
Oh, really?
Real estate and marketing.
I never knew this.
Yeah.
Well, I knew about marketing, obviously. I knew that. But
Right. But I was in real estate. I started in real estate, risk management and everything and stuff like that. But even during that, diabetes still plagued me.
Really?
Yes. Most people know when you get a job, you're kind of at-will employee for the first 30 to 90 days. It really depends on the company.
Yeah.
So I had no real time off or benefits or things like that until I hit my 90-day mark, But as a type 1 diabetic...
You got to make it that 90 days without an episode. Or they're just
Exactly. And that was where I kept butting heads. Because if I wake up and I'm in the back of an ambulance, obviously I know I didn't make it to work.
Yeah.
And now I got to try and call my boss and be like, hey, how you doing? So what had happened was, and hope I have a boss that's understanding and willing to accept it.
Give our listeners an idea why that would be. They've heard about the nerve damage now and how that would feel and affect your legs. Now you're talking about waking up in an ambulance. Explain, and I know that this has happened since I've known you repeatedly, so I know very well already and what to look for, but explain to our listeners exactly, why you would wake up in an ambulance in the morning.
So it really depends on which type. So technically there are hypoglycemic episodes, and hypo means my glucose levels dropped really, really low. And then there are hyperglycemic episodes, and that means my glucose levels were really, really high.
And what happens to you in each of these cases?
So most of the symptoms, for me, I can't say for all, for me, they tend to favor each other a little bit.
Okay.
When I have a hypo, usually I would go, both instances you can go unconscious. But the problem with the treatments for them is where it's different. So if I have a hypo, I need sugar, period. I need glucose. I need sugar. I need something put into my body ASAP, because there's too much insulin and not enough food. So I need to counter that right away. For me, most of my hypos happen when I'm sleeping, which is scary, because if I can't wake up and treat it myself, the odds of me dropping into a coma are very high. So
what kind of precautions do you take for that?
oh my God, there as many as I take, it still doesn't help.
Yeah.
With any diabetic will tell you, you can follow the same thing every day, same amount of exercise, food, everything for a whole week. And every single day, your glucose levels will still be different.
Well, what kind of safety precautions do you have to take then? I mean, you're
Usually,
waking up and texting your husband in the morning or something, or how do
what I usually do is, like, normally your glucose levels at night is usually what'll help determine what you'll be at in the morning.
Okay.
So what I usually try and do was I try and get my glucose levels at about 200. Technically, that is a little high, but for me, because almost anything can cause my glucose levels to drop, at least if they're at 200, and if they drop to 80, that's fine. Whereas if I keep them at 160 and they drop to 50, now I'm in trouble. You know what I mean? So I try my best to keep my glucose levels as high as I can get them. That's still within a comfortable range.
Yeah.
And try and keep them like that so I can sleep through the night. And
Yeah.
that's the only real safeguard. And then I have a couple of alarms set, like maybe within 4 hours after I go to sleep, my alarm will go off and I'll wake up and I'll test my glucose levels. And if I'm still good, I'll roll back over and go back to sleep. You know, there are multiple alarms set just so I know when to wake up and check and make sure I'm still okay.
Okay.
Now if I don't wake up, like usually when my husband gets home from work, he knows what to look for.
He's coming home in the morning.
Right, because he works nights. So he comes home in the morning. First thing, he'll wake me up, ask me what's my name, what his name is, what's 2 + 2. These are all simple things I should be able to respond to very quickly. And if I can't, he knows my levels are low and he'll treat it. Sometimes he's come home and I'm completely non-responsive. Like, he'll wake me up, he'll push, I'm not responding to nothing.
And that's when you wake up in an ambulance.
And that's when I'm in the back of an ambulance with an IV in me and I'm like, oh, yay, joy. So it's frustrating. Although hypos, I'm usually in the hospital for a couple of hours and then I'm sent home.
Yeah.
So it's not that big of a deal. Hypers, where my glucose levels are high, I haven't had one of those in like forever. But those, I'm usually in the hospital for a couple of days because they have to bring my glucose levels back down to normal. And it's a lot harder to bring them down than it is to bring them up. So hypers, I already know I'm missing a couple of days of work.
Yeah.
Which was hard, you know, when I'm dealing with this disease. And remember, I just graduated college. I was just diagnosed in 98. And so I graduated college in 2004. I'm still adjusting to this new disease, the way my life is going to be. And I'm getting my full-time jobs and I'm trying to balance all of this shit at once. And it was just like, oh my God. And I've lost quite a few jobs because, I mean, I know they're not supposed to discriminate and everything, but when you do hire an employee, you need someone that's going to be there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And
you get it, but you got to contest it at the same time.
It's exactly, because I get it. I totally understand. You want this person to be there. They have to be there. And I wasn't holding low-level positions. I'm working directly under the VPs and CEOs of companies. So it's not like me not being there is a problem. You know what I mean? Like, it's not an easy thing to replace. You know, being the office manager and stuff like you need that person there. And I couldn't guarantee I would be there every single day. And that's when I started getting backlash from just regular employment. And I was like, okay, how do I deal with this now? Like, something I didn't ask for, didn't plan on dealing with. Now I got to figure out how to deal with this. And that was one of the things. And that was what made it a little bit easier for me to transition into something else, into the acting and the modeling and things like that, because I said, I know it'll take time, but if I do make it, then I can set my schedule. I can set my timing. I would know what to do and things like that. You know, it would make it a lot easier for me to control because now I'm, I guess, more freelance, you know, so now I can set when I'll be available and things like that. So that was pretty much what kind of led me into going into modeling and acting and things like that.
Cool. We're going to get into a lot more of that and, you know, how this is played out, you know, with acting and modeling and such, because I know that as easy as that may sound right now, I know that you've also faced some battles when it came to doing it that way. But we're going to take a quick break and get into some more of that here in just a minute.
This is paranormal historian and author Ursula Bielski, and if you love ghosts and hauntings as much as I do, then you should join me and several other knowledgeable guests at the 2020 Afterlife Paranormal Conference on Sunday, October 4th at the Red Roof Inn Convention Center in DeKalb, Illinois. This is going to be a wonderful event featuring presentations about haunted history and evidence of the paranormal. If you have a ghost hunting team or even artwork that fits the theme, the conference also has vendor space available. Be sure to check out www.afterlifeparanormal.com for tickets and details. I look forward to seeing you there. Unless you're scared.
All right, welcome back to the Pod of Mayhem. We were just talking a lot about being a type 1 diabetic, and we talked a little bit about your brother, and there's been a lot of strenuous emotional situations that have come about through the course of your life, and there's one we haven't touched on that I know about, and that's your mother. You care to elaborate on your mom and what she had to go through?
My mommy was my mom was everything to us. That woman was like Superwoman. Like, I don't care what you say. She was Superwoman. You know, she raised me, she raised my older brother, she raised my twin brother. My little sister actually has a different mom. But if you ever spoke to my mom and asked her, how many kids do you have? She always claimed 4. My little sister, she claimed as her own. There was no ifs, ands, or buts about it. My little sister called her mommy and everything. Like, so my mom was super mom. When, like, holidays and stuff like that, my stepmom and my dad and my mom, we had Thanksgiving at my mom's. There was no exception to the rule. Like, that, you talk about a strong woman, like, that was my mommy. Like, I loved her. Like, she was everything. But we did lose her, and that was not fair. I was not happy with that. Liver and kidney failure due to alcoholism.
Ouch.
Yeah. And so I remember the day she passed, like, it sucked. Oh my God. I was like, I quit. I'm done. You guys are horrible. I hate you, God. You're like, I was done. My mom had told me the week before, because this was during a time, she died January 11, 2011. And I was doing a lot of film and auditions and stuff like that. So while
right at the beginning for you.
Right. And so while she was in the hospital and everything, like, it was still hard for me to always be there and everything. And I was so upset and I was so mad. And I remember I had told my mom, I was like, Mommy, I'm just going to take a break so I can be here. And I remember my mom yelled at me. She was like, don't you dare. And I was like, but Mommy, she was like, no. She was like, you're doing this because this is what you want to do, and I want you to do this. She was like, don't use me as an excuse to not continue and push yourself. And she yelled at me. She literally yelled at me because I was talking about putting all of that on hold so I can spend time with her. She was like, no. You know, she refused to let me do it. And then I remember she was getting some good feedback and stuff like that. Like, her results were coming back good. And so she had told me one day, she's like, I want to have like a sleepover. So I was like, okay. And she was like, I want to do it. And she said, what does she want? She wanted Kool-Aid. She wanted some watermelon. She wanted this and this and this. I was like, all right. I'll bring it. And I remember I brought it to the hospital that night. And when I went to her room, she wasn't in her room. And I was like, where is she? And they said she was on dialysis, you know. And I was like, oh, okay, so she'll be back. So I just set everything up because I was like, you know, she asked for this. So I went and got it and stuff. And I was kind of excited. And then I remember when she came back into the room, my stepdad was there. And I was like, what's like, she looked completely different. And I was like, what's wrong? And he said she flatlined while she was on dialysis. So they had to cut the dialysis short and they resuscitated her. So they was like, they had to she didn't get through the whole process of the dialysis. And I was like, oh crap. Okay. That's not good. Now she was also on the waiting list for a new liver. So that night we were in the hospital, or I was in the hospital. My stepdad had to go back home because he had to do something to get ready for work in the morning. And I was like, I'm going to be there all night. And then like nurses and everybody kept coming in, kept drawing blood, and I was like, okay, what's going on? And they said, well, the acid level in her blood is just rising. And they was like, and we need to get it down, because if we don't get it down, we're going to have to take her to ICU. And anyone who knows, if you're on a transplant list, if you get taken to ICU, your name comes off that list. And I was like, fuck. Okay, Ma, come on. Like, let's do this. Mommy, we can't get you into ICU. Like, let's go, let's go. And I'm like watching, and I'm watching her fight. And she was just fighting the doctors and stuff like that. And I remember I looked at the doctors. I was like, can y'all give me a minute with my mom real quick? And so I'm sitting there and I'm looking at my mom, and I said, Mommy, I said, are you okay? And she just shook her head no. And I said, and this is like a question you don't ever want to ask. And I said, Mommy, are you tired of fighting? And she said, yes. And I said, so you don't want to fight anymore? And she said, no. And I was like, okay. And I remember I called my family and I told them, I said, Mommy's done. She can't do this. We need to get to the hospital as soon as possible. And sure enough, shortly after that, they moved her directly into ICU. And my whole family did show up. Everybody came. And my twin brother was the last one to get there because he was just getting off work. And my mom stayed and she waited. And after my twin brother said bye to her, we lost her. And that was like the hardest thing in my life, because you don't want to say bye, but you can't force them to fight if they don't want to fight, you know? And that was so hard. I was just like, I want her to fight. I want her to still be here, you know? If I get lucky enough to have kids, or if I make it as an actress and I'm like a celebrity and stuff, you know, I want my mommy here with me. But
she will be.
She didn't want to, and I had to let her go. So
in another form, she will be, for sure.
Yeah, I know. It was hard. It was hard, and it was annoying, not fair. So yeah.
I have to admire your strength. I mean, you had one parent with cancer. Your mom passed the way she did. Your brother, and then you're dealing with this lifelong illness, and you still stay so positive all the time. That's something I've always admired. And early on, I would have had no idea. I would have had no idea when I first met you about any of this, other than, you know, what's this insulin pump thing, trying to understand. And,
right.
And I was ignorant as hell to all this. But let me tell you, after knowing you for years, I feel like I should author a book. But at the same time, you stay so positive, and I know you faced other challenges we haven't even mentioned down here.
It took a lot. Like, I'll admit, I was not the most positive person, but it was more time. You know, a lot of people don't know, but like, I've had so many failed pregnancies and stuff like that. And after a couple of them, it started. It was just too much for me. I was just like, I can't do this. And I decided I wasn't going to. So I put steps in process to end my life. And I was like, I'm done. I said, you know, God, you know, I was just telling you, you know, God doesn't give us anything that we can't handle. And I remembered that night, like, my husband had gone to work. So I knew no one was going to be home. No one could stop me and all of that stuff, you know. And I just said, I remember I talked to God and I said, I know you think I'm strong enough to handle all of this shit, but you made a mistake. I can't do this. I was like, this is too much for me and I can't. And I did everything and set up the paperwork, all that stuff to end my life. And I remember I told God, something told me to say it, but I said, if I wake up tomorrow morning, I'll know I'm meant to be here. And I said, but right now, I'm not meant to be here. I can't be here. I can't do this, and I can't. And I went to bed. And the next morning, I woke up.
What did you do that evening?
I don't want to say exactly because I don't want to give people ideas.
Okay.
But needless to say, I gave myself stuff and everything that should have just ended my life.
Okay.
And when I woke up the next morning, I remember there was so much sunlight shining into my room. And it was like so bright, like you got to squint because it was so bright. And I literally thought, I was like, oh my God, I'm in heaven. Oh my God. Oh, it worked. Like, and then I started looking around and I'm like, wait a minute, my
It's
bedroom's
still
in heaven.
Chicago.
Right. I'm like, my bedroom's in heaven. And I'm looking around and I'm like, oh my God, you got to be kidding me. And I remembered, like, I was like, okay, I went into auto and I just started testing my glucose levels, making sure everything is fine and stuff like that. And I tested, my glucose levels were in perfect harmony, which hardly ever happened upon waking up in the morning, but it did that morning. And I remember sitting there on the bed, looking at all this sunlight and everything shining in. And the first thing I did, I looked up and I was like, point made. I was like, all right. I said, I promised you I would never do this again. And I promised you I would find a purpose for why I'm here. And I was like, point made. I have a reason. There's a reason why you made sure I stayed here. So we're going to change this story. We're going to figure out what I'm here to do. And that was when everything changed for me.
And you're still telling that story
yes.
right now.
I know, right? I'm still here.
Yeah, mission has not been forgotten, obviously.
Not yet. Not ever. I refuse. I made that promise. I said if I woke up, I know there's a reason for me to be here, and I will never do that again, and I will find my purpose, and I will live for it. And that's what I've been doing ever since.
That's an amazing story. We've barely touched on film at all, and you have such a story. And I said this before, we could do a 3 to 5 hour podcast, or I could do Anita part 3. We do have some time, which is good, because I do want to get into some of your creative stuff and the brighter side of life. And obviously even the bright side comes with its major challenges. As a type 1 diabetic, I mean, what kind of challenges has that posed for you in filmmaking and in modeling, I guess, as well?
It's more of and it's the frustrating part. It's more of not wanting to see it. I mean, think like models and stuff, they're supposed to be perfect and all that other bullshit and stuff like that.
We didn't talk about the insulin pump. I mean, a lot of people probably think you're using a needle and doing an injection for insulin. No. So you might want to explain to them exactly what this is.
I have an insulin pump, and what my pump does is it's the Omnipod insulin pump, and it stays attached to me. I do have to change it every 72 hours, so the locations and everything have to change. But basically what it does is it's like your pancreas constantly delivers insulin. My insulin pump now delivers insulin. So basically my pump is now my new pancreas because my pancreas got stupid and quit. So.
And this is like a little thing that's about, it's like 2 inches or so. Maybe.
Like it's so little. It's people, Oh my God.
It's just enough to see if you're looking for it, really.
Right.
And it sticks to you. It sticks out from your body,
exactly
3/4 of an inch or something.
Maybe.
And it's like 2 inches by 2.5 inches or something like that.
Right. It's not a huge thing.
Now, tell me how that alone has affected film, because I know that it has.
Yes, it has. Oh my God. So the film world in general, I remember, the way I feel is, unless it's a period piece where my pump was not in existence,
sure,
then yes, I'm in total agreement. We'll do what we need to do to hide it. But if it's today, why do I have to hide my pump? Why do you need it to be hidden? And this is a conflict I keep coming up against with filmmakers. I remember my agent sent me on an audition for an HIV campaign ad. Mm-hmm. And it was semi-nude. And I remember when they saw me, I had my insulin pump on my arm. And they were like, so if you get selected, you're going to take that off and not have that in the ad, right? And I'm like, why? To me, it makes no sense. Are you serious? And they literally told my agent, well, we didn't want to have to come up with the extra money to airbrush it out of her photos. So we're not going to go with her. And I'm like, are you serious? You gotta be kidding me. And I had a film that was shooting in LA. They reached out to me and they said it was very similar to Sharon Stone from Basic Instinct. So you knew I was all over that. I was like, oh yeah, let's go. And they said they needed to see some photos that were very sexual. They said if they were nude, they're fine. If they're not, but they needed that sexuality that she would possess. And I actually sent them the one you took of me on the mirror with my pump showing. Mm-hmm. I didn't even remember my pump was in the photo, to be honest. I was like, oh my God, this is sexy as hell. Let me send this to them. So the writer and he was the producer, but he wasn't financing the film. So he got it and he sent it to them and the people financing it and stuff like that. And he called me later and he goes, they were asking, what was that white thing on your arm? I was like, the white thing on my arm? What are you... Oh, my insulin pump? Yeah, Yeah, it's insulin pump, type 1 diabetic. That's my medicine, basically. And he goes, oh, okay. And I remember a week went past and I didn't hear back from him. And then he called me back and he said, and I quote, according to them, they did not see how someone who has to wear an insulin pump could portray the sexuality needed to deliver this character. And by default, I was no longer being considered for the role.
Oh, shit.
And I was livid. And I think what made me even more livid was, of course, I posted it. And then I had my fellow type 1 community, well, why don't you just hide it and stop sending it and stop doing it? And I'm like, wait. No. Why do I have to? Like, are you serious? So you guys are telling me in order for me to be successful, I should hide something that is a part of my everyday life, something I don't get a vacation from. You guys are telling me to follow their line and hide it, continue to hide it, continue to allow the ignorance that currently exists about this disease to continue because people can't handle it. Is that what you're saying I should do? And I was like, no. I was like, I am not doing that shit. And that was pretty much when I became all gung-ho about changing the perspective of what it means to be a type 1 diabetic.
I remember you bringing it up to me the first time I worked with you, and I don't even remember what the hell the film was now, but I know it was a conversation we had previous, and you sent me photos of it or whatever. And you're like, I can move this. It has to change. Whatever. I knew that every 72 hours. I mean, I knew this stuff already after talking to you. And it just kind of shocked me that would be such an issue for so many people. But I always appreciated that you would reach out and say, hey, I can hide it and put it in this spot or that spot. And this is something you can move around so people understand it doesn't have to be right on the arm like this photo she's talking about. It can be in a number of places.
Right.
You're always willing to do that, but I just don't see why it has to matter so much unless it's taking something very specific away from a character or something. I just don't quite get why that has to be such a big deal.
But see, so many people, like they've said, like the directors and stuff, some of them that I have spoken to, they've actually told me, well, I feel like if people see the pump, then it makes the film about a diabetic. And I'm like, what? I'm like, so basically your storyline isn't strong enough. Like to me, that's what it sounds like you're saying. Because if you feel like one little medical device is going to completely take away from the story, you don't have a strong enough storyline.
Yeah. I know that in some of the films we've done, I've had you in intimate scenes with the showing, for
yes.
sure. What in the Sam Hill? It's a comedy film. Most of it's improvised based on like a script that I made,
Right.
But we let that show in that film. And
no one said anything.
If anybody ever glanced at that and wondered what the hell it was, I only see that as a success for you on the outside of the story that, okay, they're going to go research, what does she have?
Right.
And what is this thing? I think it just builds awareness without even having to say a word about it. That character is a type 1 diabetic, not that we even have to say it.
Exactly. Same thing, like, I remember in Pieces of David.
It certainly didn't make that scene any less comical.
It sure didn't. That scene was hilarious. I remember in Pieces of David, I remember when I got cast, and Lawrence Lee Wallace was the writer and the director. And the first thing I said was, hey, so, type 1 diabetic, I got to wear this. One of the main things about that film was because the storyline is over a 24-hour period. But it was being filmed over the course of a couple of weeks. So by default, my pump had to move. Yeah. So I needed to know where he wanted my pump in order for it to stay for the whole filming, because this was a one-day thing that happened to the women in this film.
And you can't put it in the same spot twice in a row,
right?
I
can't. It's not recommended because you'll end up with scar tissue. Insulin won't absorb properly and things like that. So that was the first question I asked with him. Yeah. And he said he did want it on my arm. He wanted me in a short sleeve shirt. He even picked out the decoration he wanted my insulin pump to wear for the film.
Let's talk about this for a second, because this is one thing I love about this pump. I've seen you show up to photo sessions I've done with my logo on this thing.
Yes, I have.
Now, tell people what you're able to do with that.
So there's a company called Pump Peels, and they design all these really cool stickers, sort of, so to speak, that you can put on your insulin pumps. And if you guys research it, there are several types of insulin pumps that are in existence, and they kind of look boring. Like, my pump is all white without any decoration on it or anything, so it is very boring. But Pump Peels creates all of these cool designs. They have their own set, but you can also customize them. And I remember when I did my shoot with you, I asked them, I said, how quickly can you guys get his logo on this skin and send it out to me? And they were like, oh, we can do it as soon as you send it to us. And they literally, I remember they sent it and it got there like 2 days before our photo shoot.
Yeah.
And I was like, all right, let's go. Like, this, I can decorate it. I can add some fashion. Like, it's not boring, people. Like, come on.
Our photo sessions have been like many of my others, but I think it's always been kind of cool the way we're trying to creatively incorporate that and make sure that it's shown, as opposed to, you know, if it shows, it shows. Like, we actively made a point to show that. We've had stunt pumps involved in some of the shoots.
Oh my God. Yeah, we
so
did.
So if we shoot in the front of you, we see it, we shoot the back of you, we can also place it in another spot that's not necessarily really, and doing its service at the moment, but still showing it. And
it's more because of the whole continuity, because if my character had the pump on for this particular scene and it's that night, but that night didn't get shot until 4 days later, the pump that was there is no longer going to be there, so we have the stunt pump. So that way it keeps with the continuity of the film.
That's the one major thing I could see being a drawback in some situations involving that, is continuity over a period of time.
But that's why, like, every time, if I know it's going to take a minute or two to shoot all my scenes and things like that, the first thing I ask is, where do you want it placed? Because if this is where you want it placed, we need to get all those scenes that are in that same time frame done, so that way I'm not messing up continuity. Or if you just want it hidden so we don't have to worry about it, then we can do it like that. But I am very adamant about it. I pay attention where my pump was placed. That's kind of one of the reasons why I post so many photos with my pump online, because if I am working on a production during that time frame, I can still go back and be like, okay, I had that one on, I had it there, and I had this with it. Got it. And it's a constant memory of where it was placed. So whatever film I'm working on during that time frame, I have technically documented proof of where it was at that time. So it's a kind of inside thing of why I do what I do.
I think it's amazing to do photo sessions with that and show that it has nothing to do with the beauty of the image or the person in it. It's just a powerful message before we even talk about a pose or lighting. It's there already. It's excellent.
And that's what I like. Like, I love the fact that, like, for me, nudity, non-nudity, I don't care. Whatever you consider beautiful is beauty, but you're the one who has to believe it. And I found myself in this weird situation where I'm either being told, because I'm a diabetic, or because I have these scars, or because I have to wear this pump, or like all of a sudden I'm not as beautiful as I could be had I not have to do all of this shit. And I found myself hating that that's the idea of beauty. And I'm like, but it's not. Beauty is whatever you consider to be beautiful. So if that's what you consider beautiful, show your definition of beauty. Let the world see your definition of beauty and challenge it, change it. Not everyone gonna think my pictures are gorgeous. Frankly, I don't give a fuck, but I think my pictures look good. So that's all that matters. So, but that's what we're supposed to do. Like, I love that I get to do photo shoots and I get to work on films and things like that, where I can challenge that, force people to look and pay attention and be like, you know what? That's actually pretty cool. To me, that's amazing. I love that. That's my favorite part.
We have covered so much, and we're going to go into overtime today. We're going to have one more segment here to cover. I want to talk about your relationships and this unique lifestyle. But first, we got to satisfy the sponsors a little bit. So we're going to take another quick break. Be right back. Get ready for the new Fetish Pod. I'm Willy.
And I'm Z. For those of you who enjoy the kinky side of life, you are going to love the Fetish Pod.
Each show will feature a telling of an erotic story or two.
And then we will dive deeply into all of the dirty details, discussing different fetishes each week.
So we wish to invite you to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Simply search for the Fetish Pod.
Also, if you have an erotic story that you would like to share, please do email to thefetishpod@gmail.com, and we may feature your story on our show.
Our new podcast will be released every Wednesday beginning April 15th on all major podcasting platforms.
The Fetish Pod is for adult listeners 18 and over only. Our content can and will be very graphic with no apologies, so listener discretion is advised.
The Fetish Pod is a member of the Breaking Fate Radio Network. All right, welcome back to the Pod of Mayhem. I'm Willy Atkins. I'm here with Anita Nicole Brown. We've covered a lot today, but we're not going to end this podcast without playing the Pod of Questions. Usually the Pod of Questions is 10 questions I ask, and look for any answer you want to give, and you can explain your answer if you decide to. It's kind of up to you. Today we're going to do 5 questions because we've covered a lot in this podcast today. But if you're prepared for this, we're going to dig right in. All right.
I'm interested in these questions now.
Question number 1. If you were only allowed to speak one word for an entire day, what word would you choose to speak and why?
You know what? I would have to say maybe.
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 You would be teasing people all day.
Oh, yes.
I would find... So you would find one word that you could use to torture everybody else for an entire day.
Duh. Do you not know me, Willy? Maybe would be my word of choice. I love it.
I didn't see that coming. That's good. It's really good. So you're good at this game. All right, number 2. Who is your biggest inspiration in life?
Honestly, like I said, it was my mom. It still is. My mommy is still my biggest inspiration. For everything that she went through, she encountered, she dealt with a lot of people don't know she had failed pregnancy. She gave up a child. She, so she experienced a rape, and she still, my mom.
She's seen some shit.
Yeah, and she was still the most happy, positive person that she could be. She did have her dark moments, but she would tell you about them, so. My mom, she is still my inspiration. If I can be even just a percentage of who she was, then I'm good.
Just in the topics covered today alone, trust me, you are. You definitely
I hope so.
Number 3. This is a very serious, important question here. Gummy worms or gummy bears?
Ooh. Do I have to pick one?
That's the question.
Because I'm neither. Okay, if I have to pick one, I'm going to say gummy bears because, this is so bad. Because they're smaller so they can go down faster.
Wow. I love your pervo humor.
I know.
There's nothing perverted about it, but it's right there, still humming away.
Oh my God.
I chose this question specifically for you because I had you in studio once and I kept feeding you gummy bears through the entire shoot.
Uh-huh.
And I know it's like a thing for you to have
something sweet.
Yep, exactly.
Yep.
I knew that a little bit of sugar was always a good thing. Number 4. What is your favorite ice cream flavor?
Right now, I've kind of been addicted to pistachio.
Really?
Yes.
Nice.
I don't understand why. But for some reason, it's that one for now. Next month, it might be different. But for now, that's what it is.
When I was growing up, my granny always used to make this stuff that she called green glop. And it was pistachio pudding with Cool Whip in it. And then a bunch of fruit mixed in. It was really good.
I would imagine.
And it has a horrible name, Green Glop, but it was amazing.
But it was awesome, so that's all that matters.
It was truly amazing. All right, number 5. What would be involved in your ultimate date night?
Whoo, ultimate date night. Okay, so gotta have movies. Like, gotta go to the movies. Gotta have some swing dancing. You know that. Like, gotta have dancing. Bowling, and of course, food. It's gotta be food. So if that can all happen in one date, then that's the most perfect date ever. And you'll probably get some at the end of the night if all of that can happen. So, yes.
Oh, my. I was going to get on to the next part of this. I got to look up movie tickets first.
No, my God.
Well, it's kind of a segue question there, the ultimate date night, because, you know, I know you well enough to know a lot about you, really. And one thing we haven't covered in this podcast is who that date would probably be with. And we did mention briefly, you made mention of your husband working overnights. Mm-hmm. You didn't mention what his name was or what he does, but maybe you can elaborate on that more. And why I am thinking who this date night should be with would be a really funny question.
Okay, so I will not say his name, but everyone knows who my hubby is. And I'm only not saying his name because he is a police officer, so we do try and keep that separate because, you know, some crazy people.
Chicago.
Exactly.
Yep.
We'll target people. So it's one of the reasons why we've kind of kept that secret. But my Willy is saying why we haven't mentioned who the date night would be with is because I am actually in an open marriage. So I have a hubby and I also have a boyfriend. So that is my wonderful lifestyle. And I don't know. The bowling and everything, the hubby and the boyfriend would both do bowling. The hubby and the boyfriend would both do food.
They're really good friends, right? The two?
Yeah.
Which means that they could both, like, make your day hell together. They can plot against you, which is...
I'm sure they do. Yeah. I'm not even going to lie. I'm sure they do. Like, I'm not going to lie. I think they pick their moments of when they're going to pick on me and tease me and torture me. And yes. And then they got the guy bonding bullshit. So whatever. Blah.
So who that date is with depends on who you hate the least at the given day.
Pretty much. Because it's like, this is not fair. Like, no. They get along very well. Like, I make jokes. Like, trust me, I'm really happy they are good friends and stuff like that. But I do make jokes that if, Lord forbid, I ever ended my relationship with my boyfriend, my husband would still sneak out to hang out with my boyfriend. Like, I gave
They'd
my
have
husband
a bro affair.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I gave my husband a new best friend. Like, that is what I did when my boyfriend was entered into the story. So, yeah, I'll be like, honey, where are you going? I got to go to work. You don't work on this night. Yeah, I got called in. Really? Okay. Why are you not in uniform? See what happened was, and then like the boyfriend will be waiting outside texting him, dude, it's taking so long. So yeah, trust me.
So you got a husband and a boyfriend, and you're still the one sitting at home on date night. Ain't that
I know, right? Isn't that messed up?
So what is that dynamic like for you? I mean, how long has this relationship been this way?
So the hubby and I have been together since we've been married since May 11, 2004. The boyfriend came into the picture February 1st, 2011.
Okay.
So it's been a little bit of time for both of them. But it's actually pretty cool. It's pretty cool. When my husband mentioned it, I literally thought he was full of shit.
Didn't believe him?
No. Hell no. No, not at all. No way. No shape, no form did I believe he was serious about it. But he was. And I was like, oh. In fact, my current boyfriend wasn't my boyfriend at the time. Me and my husband had been separated. And then he told me he wanted me to move back home. And I told him I was dating someone, so I needed to end that relationship before I came back home. And he was like, oh, you don't have to do that. Don't worry about that. It's fine. And again, I'm like, oh, yeah, he's full of shit, whatever. So eventually I came back home, moved back in and everything and stuff like that. And I remember he asked me, he was like, so what happened to the guy you were seeing? And I'm like, I ended it, remember? Like, I told you I was going to. He was like, and I told you didn't have to. So me thinking, okay, I'm going to call his bluff right here, right now. I was like, I'm going to call his bluff. So I text the guy. that I was seeing. Like, it wasn't my current boyfriend, but I was like, I'm going to text him and I'm going to invite him over. And I'm going to see if, you know, the hubby going to be all, hey, we're cool. Like, I'm calling your bluff right here, right now. So I remember I invited the guy over and then had a brain fart and forgot it was the night my husband was going to be getting ready for work. I know, smart, right? You're going to meet my husband and he's full cop gear. Awesome. Great.
I'm sure that
great
boyfriend
way.
was just
I know.
in a great mental health state.
Oh, he was great. And so I remember he rang the doorbell and I went and buzzed him in, and my husband was walking to the front door just as he knocked on the door. So my husband opens the door and he was like, oh, you must be so-and-so. And the guy's just like, yeah. He's like kind of looking at me and everything. And I'm just sitting like, I'm waiting for my husband to just like snap and say, why the fuck is he here? Like, you know, I'm just waiting for it because I know it's coming, right? And so then my husband goes, well, you know, I'm so-and-so. I'm her husband. As you can see, obviously, I'm getting ready to head out to work. But, you know, if you're here when I get back in the morning, you know, we'll just chat then. But if not, I'll just catch up with you when I get the chance. And walked right out the door and closed it. And me and the dude is just sitting there like.
That just happened.
And he literally looked at me. He goes, maybe I should leave. I was like, yeah, just go. Like, I ain't even there. Just get out. I was like, because I don't know what the hell just happened. I was like, but just get out. And that was literally like, yeah, apparently he was serious when he said I could have a boyfriend. So
how's that dynamic worked out then in the years since?
I want to say it's been pretty good. It's with my current boyfriend. It's like, it's still a little bit sketchy and iffy, only because like he has issues of like how to deal with me. And it's only because, I mean, my husband's been there for so much. So it's not fair to think that you would have the same connection and understanding of me that my husband has, because it took us years to get to where we are now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, like, I kind of understand his, you know, a little bit of frustration and stuff like that, you know, like, especially when I have, like, my hypos and stuff like that. He's like, well, you never, you always respond so well to him and blah, blah, blah. And you always fight against me and blah, blah, blah. And, like, my husband has had to tell him, no, she fought me a lot in the beginning. Like, dude, it's not, she doesn't know what she's doing, you know, so.
Jealousy always play a little part in that, I'm sure.
But I think, and it's like he knows. Like, if you ever ask my boyfriend whose comes first, he will say her husband, because it's my husband.
Yeah.
My husband will always pull rank. But it was just, there are just certain things that just irks him, you know, and things like that. And like, sometimes I have to kind of lay it out. I'm not always the nicest person when I lay shit out, but you know, I'm like, well, we all live together, but my husband carries a bulk of the financial responsibility. So yes, I may get on the boyfriend about clothes being around, dishes not being done, stuff like that. But the hubby is paying for basically everything in the household. So I'm not going to bitch to him about how come you can't pick your clothes off the floor? Why can't you do the dishes? For real? Like, I'm not going to bitch about that. That's just petty as hell for me. You know, now the boyfriend, on the other hand, yeah, I'm a bitch to you about that because you're not paying a majority of the household responsibilities. You know what I mean? So no, I will bitch to you, get this shit cleaned. Like, I'm tired, but I'm not going to do
Three's
that.
Company.
Exactly. Like, I'm not going to do that to my husband. I know my place. I know he's paying for everything and all of that shit. So I'm not going to whine and cry about some petty shit.
So has this relationship dynamic been more beneficial to you?
For me, I want to say yes, definitely, because I think part of the reason why my husband may have been okay with it was in the instance of, you know, with him being a cop, if he can't get home and I have a medical emergency or something along those lines, he knows there's someone else that can step in. And I think for him, that was a little bit of it took a little bit of the stress off of him, knowing there's someone else there that can also look after and provide. So I think that was really more what made him more comfortable with it. The boyfriend getting adjusted to it it took time, and it's still taking time, trust me. But
not used to that still to this day.
I know.
9 years now, I think.
Right? Yeah, 9. Yep. But I mean, I think for all of us together, it does make it a little easier, you know, because if I forget something or something happens or whatever, and I know my husband's at work and I can't get a hold of him, I can text the boyfriend, and the boyfriend will be like, okay, I'll grab it, da 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 da. No, if you know, so I think as a type 1 diabetic, I'm not saying all of us need to have multiples, but having that group, you know, those people that, because in essence, I have to trust them with my life. And having both of them there, knowing I can trust both of them with my life, that makes it a lot easier for me. You know what I mean? So, yeah.
I think it has to come with such a degree of honesty to begin with.
Unfortunately, yes. No, I'm not saying unfortunately, but yes.
Good and bad. I mean, some people, yeah, our society, obviously, monogamous relationships are still the social norm, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so much of our society is infidelity.
Yes.
And completely dishonest in so many ways, or they have these thoughts or ideas or desires that they just bottle up or lie about because they don't want to hurt the person next to them, and really are they hurting them more by lying about it than they are just being blunt and honest.
That's kind of what I've always said. I said, because most of my friends, and I do have a lot of male friends, but when they say, man, you know, I could never be okay with that, and I know they've been creeping around as it is, and I'm kind of like, dude,
you're
technically,
doing it.
Right, technically you're doing the exact same thing I'm doing. The only thing is your girl don't know. And I've had to call them on a lot of it. I was like, what if you found out she was doing the same thing you doing right now? No, that's not right. No. Hold on now. If you don't want her to do it, then why are you doing it? You got to play by the same rules. Like, it's not fair. And like, everyone's always asked me, like, so what if your husband had a girlfriend? He did have a girlfriend before. Women have issues.
Yeah.
But he did have a girlfriend. And she... whatever. And then they said, what if my boyfriend wanted a girlfriend? I was like, as long as he was up front, because I swear if some broad comes knocking on my front door talking about why you got my man up in there, I'm beating his ass. I'm not coming to her because I know he the one who didn't say shit. You know, so as long as he's honest with her about what he's involved in, I don't care. You know, I'm fine with that. It's just, I think we've been told we're supposed to be monogamous, and that's not true. I feel like we're just supposed to be happy. And if this makes us happy, as long as we are honest and open and, you know, then that's fine.
Well, humans are a type of primates, and primates are extremely non-monogamous.
Thank you.
Multiple times within a day.
Thank you.
Lucky bastard.
I told you. I said, if in my own world, I would have a harem. I know I can't. But I would.
I could talk about this subject for hours. I do want to flip the script and get back to the typical theme of our show, and that's the creative side of things. We got to know a lot about you today. Thank you for sharing so much. I'm curious what your current projects are, currently, what's coming up, and where people can find stuff you've worked on already.
Whew. Oh, that's a really good question. Some of the stuff I've worked on is on YouTube. Like most of my stuff with Nathan, Time Code Mechanics, that stuff is on YouTube. I know Pieces of David, which finished in 2018, I believe. That is on Amazon Prime.
Amazon Prime, they could probably search you by name and find a number of titles.
Yeah, you might. Yeah, because Sam Hill is also on there.
Yeah.
Unconditionally is also on there. Little Things is also on there. Like there's a number of stuff that is on Prime, so you could just look up my name or something like that and you'll find it there. There are a couple of films. I think one short film just finished. It is called Bully Side. That is with Lawrence White, and that's, I don't know if we're officially in post yet, but that one that one is an interesting piece, so kind of excited about that one. I know I just finished Routines with You. That is still in post.
Yes.
So
very dark comedy.
Yes, but dark comedies are the best ones. So that one, whenever that one is done. There was a short film that's now running a festival circuit right now. We've been accepted into 3 of them. That is a Generational Curse. And I just posted the trailer for that one not too long ago because we had to keep all of that quiet until. And so once the producer and stuff posted the trailer, I was like, yay, now I can share. So it took some time for that one.
So beyond film, I also understand that this month, at the time this podcast will actually come out, there is also another project that you're involved in, or a new publication.
Yes. I was allowed to be interviewed or write an article or whatever for a magazine called Inspiring Lives magazine. And they said I should be in the March issue. So we'll see. I have no idea what it's going to look like. I have no idea what it's going to say. It's so nerve-wracking. Like, I know I'll get the magazine in the mail. They said they will be mailing it out to me as soon as March gets here, so I'm a little nervous.
And that's written about the T1-D then?
It is. It's a little bit of both, of learning how to just deal with being in this industry and still, I'm not going to say try and be a positive role model for type 1s, because I kind of see it as just being a real role model for type 1s. I'm not trying to be positive. I'm not trying to be super I'm just being real with what life is like with this disease. You know what I mean? And it's pretty, and then it's ugly as hell, and then it's aight. But I'm just, I want to just be real with what life is like with this disease, and for the current path that I chose to walk with it. And I don't know. I don't know what they'll keep, what they'll edit. Same thing with film. You never know what's gonna make it onto the film screen and what makes it onto the chopping block floor. So I don't know, but I'm excited and nervous as hell. So
I'm down to 2 last questions for you today. The first one is, of everything you've worked on here, you have 78 credits as an actress. You have almost a handful of credits involved in producing in various stages. You've been involved in magazines and modeling. Of all these projects, what has been the absolute most fun thing you've ever worked on, whether it be a specific film or
I would have to say my favorite has been with time code mechanics for Crisis Function. And the reason why was because I remember when I'd worked with Nathan for Epitaph, but at the time when we did Epitaph, I was still on injections. And when he told me he wanted to do this fighting film and things like that with fighting choreography and things, those who don't know, I do have a boxing background. So when Nathan was like, he wanted to put me in some fighting shit, I was like, oh my God, yay. But Nathan Brendan Masters for time code mechanics.
Okay.
Now, I had transitioned to an insulin pump. And being on an insulin pump with fight choreography, it becomes a little bit more, you got to be careful, because you can hit my pump, you can cause it to deactivate, you can cause it to fall off, so it's not as easy as it is to do, but it was something I was still so geeked and so excited to be a part of. And I remember Nathan, when he realized I was on the pump, he changed the character and put type 1 diabetes as part of a character for my character in the film. So he made it about a type 1 diabetic that's also a special agent that can kick ass and shit like that. And I remember going through additional choreography and training. I remember all the bruises I got. I busted a lip one day because I missed a move. It had nothing to do with choreography. I missed my block. That was all on me. So, but working on the Crisis Function has been amazing, because it's the first time you're seeing type 1 diabetes, and it's not being portrayed as, oh, I'm fragile, I'm gonna die tomorrow, blah, blah, blah. Like the way Hollywood has painted this conception of type 1, this is taking it to a totally different avenue. And that is something that I love. Like that is my heart. Like I love this idea of being a type 1 diabetic as opposed to in a hospital bed.
Type 1 diabadass.
Yes, diabadass, definitely.
I always love that term. That's been awesome. All right, very final thing. Do we have a website we can plug, or Facebook, et cetera, et cetera? Where can people find you?
All over the place. No, I'm just kidding. Well, kind of. I do have my website. It is Anita Nicole Brown. Is it .com, I think? See how often I use it. Because
I believe so. Let me check.
yeah, I'm like, it is .com, right? I think so.
I would assume.
Yeah. Only thing is, it's not like www. That is one thing it is not. It is just AnitaNicoleBrown.com.
That is correct. .com.
Mm-hmm. And then Instagram, Anita Nicole Brown. Twitter, Anita N. Brown. Facebook, I actually have 2 pages. However, the page you're looking for is Anita Nicole Brown, the actress. My other page is only for people who know me and that I actually know.
That's where all the good stuff is.
Exactly.
Actually, I'm looking at your site now, AnitaNicoleBrown.com, and at the very bottom of the main page, you can find your IMDb, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram.
Yep.
LinkedIn.
I made sure all of them were on there. Like, yeah, you can find me almost everywhere. Almost.
There's also a fun photo gallery. Definitely
Yes,
want to check
it
that out.
is. There's this photographer. Oh my God, what the hell was his name? Like, it's like Deviant something. No, I'm just kidding. I do have Willy's work on my website. So Willy has done some amazing work with me. So yes, I
There's
have
a lot of them on here. Actually, a lot of different stuff. Wow.
Oh yeah, trust me, I keep everything on there.
There's nudity on here.
Yeah. If you guys have issues with nudity, then obviously you're not going to want to go to my site.
Yeah,
But-
just go to the headshot gallery and be boring.
Right. But if you want something a little bit more tasteful and a little bit more fun, you can definitely go to the other gallery and have fun with it.
Anita, thank you for sharing your story. I know that we've seen tears and laughter from the beginning of this. It's been quite a roller coaster. It's quite a story, and I think a lot of people enjoy it. Thanks for coming out and being part of this.
Thank you for having me.
All right, it's that time, my friends. I want to thank you all for listening in. Another huge thanks to Anita Nicole Brown for being my guest in the Pod of Mayhem this week. In addition to shining a light on creative people by way of the Pod of Mayhem, I also run a company called Breaking Fate Entertainment, with my mission being to produce, promote, and distribute the independent arts with film festivals, art exhibits, conventions, film production, book publishings, and so much more. If you're interested in supporting my efforts, I invite you to check out my new Patreon page at www.patreon.com/breakingfate, where you can be a mega fan and supporter of all that I do. It's a brand new page that I just created, and I will be adding some new perks for my supporters in the weeks to come. If you enjoyed this episode of the Pod of Mayhem, please give me a follow on Anchor.fm, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you like to stream your podcast. Please drop me a star rating and review if you feel so inclined. To stay in the loop with what I'm personally doing and access all my social media, simply visit willyatkins.com. Next week's show will feature Evan J. Thomas of Badass Productions. Be sure to subscribe and follow so not to miss it. Till next time, I'm Willy Atkins. I'll see ya.